Good afternoon, everybody. It's 2 o'clock, just gone actually, and it's Friday, and it's the Friday of a bank holiday weekend, which is even better. So welcome to my craft room, and thank you so much for joining me today for Stamp and Chat Live. I'm just going to have a quick look at my iPad and see that I'm there and make sure everything's looking okay. Let's just find myself. And I can see I'm there. Excellent. So Karen is there. Hello, Karen. Lovely to have you back this week. Thank you for joining us again. Karen says hello to everybody. I don't know what the weather's like with you, Karen. Here it's been kind of sunny and cloudy today, but it's quite chilly. I keep hoping that it's going to warm up, but it's not very warm at all. So, first of all, I'm going to do what I always do, which is talk a bit about my week and give you a few Stampin' Up updates, and then we're going to launch into some crafting. So Karen's saying it's cloudy and cold there too. Now you're Sussex, I think, Karen, aren't you? I think that's what you told me, if I've remembered correctly. If I haven't, then put me right. So I've had a very busy week. I had a class on Monday, a fancy fold cards class. Suffolk, I beg your pardon, Karen, you're in Suffolk, not Sussex. Okay, Suffolk, yes, further northeast than Sussex. Okay, thank you. So I had a fancy fold cards class on Monday morning. That was a lot of fun. And then the rest of the week I've been busy making things with my new goodies and getting ready for next week, where I'm going to do 3 lives here on Facebook to launch the new catalogue. And I've just seen some more comments come up. So Mary's here. Hello, Mary. She says hello to everybody too. And Maureen as well is here. You're welcome, Maureen. And Maureen says hi to everybody too. Belinda's here. Hello, Belinda. You're very welcome as well. All right, so that's been my week. Busy, busy, busy. I think I'm probably going to be working tomorrow as well, because I've got some more things that I'd really, really like to make before next week. So it's not really work, is it, when you're making things? Let's face it, I'm pretending I'm working. I'm really just playing in my craft room. That's why I love my job so much. Okay, so a few reminders. The retiring list, the list of all the products that are discontinuing from the annual catalogue, is running, but only until the end of Monday. Monday evening, that's it. You won't be able to get anything from the current annual catalogue at all. That is not carrying over into the new one. So please make sure that if there was anything you've been umming and ahhing about, you get your order in soon. The new annual catalogue launches on Tuesday morning. That's May the 3rd. I'm very excited about that. Sadly, instead of looking at my catalogue on Tuesday morning, I'm going to be in the dentist's chair. If you know me well, you will know that I cannot deal with the dentist at all. I am petrified. However, I've got some of a Mother's Little Helper, which my dentist gives me, which I will take on the morning, and that will get me through. It's only a checkup, and let's hope nothing needs doing. But once I get home, I shall make myself a cup of coffee and have yet another look at my new catalogue to reward myself. So Belinda says hello to everyone. I think I've done that one, haven't I? That's fine. So yes, new catalogue next week, very exciting. I will be going live at 2 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon and Friday afternoon. I have a class on Thursday and I just can't fit in a live as well. But I've put events up here on Facebook for my extra lives next week, as well as the usual one on Friday. So in case you haven't seen them, Tuesday, which is the first day of the catalogue, I'm going to be doing a catalogue tour. I'll show you some of my absolute favourites. There's always things that you miss at the first glance of the catalogue, so I'll try and pull them out so you don't miss them. I'm going to be talking about the new in colours. I've sneak peeked them a little bit. You may well have seen them, and I'm going to be making a project with those, showing you some more projects, and then also making up the little card project that I sent out with your catalogues. I've already received a photograph from somebody who couldn't wait and has designed her own card with the contents of the envelope. It was absolutely lovely. Well done, Roxana. I thoroughly enjoyed that one. If you'd like to make yours the way I had it in mind, then you will be able to see me do that on Tuesday afternoon. On Wednesday, I'm looking at some absolutely gorgeous florals and also making an easy shaker bottle card. So that is going to be on Wednesday. It's the Hues of Happiness suite, which is quite possibly my favourite in the whole catalogue. So I'm really looking forward to that one. And on Friday, I'm doing what I'm calling Beautiful Blues with the Sun Prints suite. That's a really interesting one. It's giving you the look of cyanotypes, which is a particular form of printing using sunlight. I'll talk to you about how you could do that and why you might prefer not to, and to get the Sun Print suite instead on Friday afternoon. So there we go. That's 3 sessions next week, Tuesday, Wednesday and Friday at 2 o'clock here. Of course, you can watch it on the replay, and I will upload them all to YouTube as well, so you'll be able to see them there too if you can't make it live. Belinda says she's just using the Hues of Happiness right now. I shall look forward very much to seeing what you make, Belinda. Your samples are always beautiful. And Carol is here. She says hello to everyone. Thank you for joining us, Carol. A couple more reminders. If you would like to come to my May Fancy Fold cards class, that is an in-person class. I'm sorry I don't offer that one by post. Then it's running on the 23rd of May and you need to book that today. The cost of that class is £18, or instead you can give me an order for £28 plus shipping if you'd like to pay for your class that way. We make 2 styles of fancy fold card. You'll make templates and a finished project for each of those 2 folds. And if you'd like to come to my June card class, that's not particularly fancy fold cards. Sometimes I throw in a simple fancy fold, but it's much more straightforward cards because we make 6 of them, 6 different cards. That's running on June the 9th, so it's a week later than usual because we've got the extra bank holiday in June. I think it's the Whitsun one that they've moved forward to June instead of having it at the very end of May. And then we've obviously got the extra one for Her Majesty. So that's running a little bit later than usual, a week later on the 9th of June. And you have until a week today to book that class. So Carol says that she's using Hues of Happiness now as well, just to stamp a card for her Mum's flowers for Tuesday. That will be lovely, Carol. It will be, you know, very, very appropriate, I think. So Carol and Belinda are both Stampin' Up demonstrators. I'm lucky enough to have them both in my team, which is why they've got their hands on new things earlier. And Kay is here. Hello, Kay. I'm so pleased that you could join us as well. I think that is all the reminders except for one, which is the Waves of the Ocean suite. So again, you have until the end of Monday if you were thinking about ordering the patterned paper or the coloured foils or the beautiful blues and greens rhinestones, then those will not be available after the end of Monday, although the dies and the stamps and the bundle of the stamps and dies are in the new catalogue. Now I'm going to be using those papers in a minute, so I will try and remember to point out to you that those are the ones I'm talking about, just in case you didn't know. So today is all about your scraps. I don't know about you, but I suspect every crafter keeps bits and pieces that are too good to throw away. In my line of work, I cut packs and packs and packs of card every week, and I don't keep all my scraps because I just don't have the space for them. I'd have more scraps than A4 card, I think, probably. But I do keep scraps. I keep all my oddments of card, I keep die cuts, I keep pieces of patterned paper, anything that's too pretty to throw away. I keep little scraps of ribbon, and I'm absolutely certain that you are all much the same. So that's what we're going to be using today. It seemed a particularly good topic for the end of a catalogue, because I'm sure by now you will have the most scraps you'll have all year, because you've got all the bits and pieces of your leftovers from all the pattern paper and so on in the catalogue. So we're going to use some of those up this afternoon. I'm just going to cover over the camera and put it down towards my desk, and no doubt there'll be a little bit of fiddling around while I get that in the right place, so bear with me. I'll cover you over so you hopefully don't feel motion sick, and I'll just change my settings. While I'm doing this, can I remind you that algorithms on both Facebook and YouTube, depending on where and when you're watching this, really like interaction. So they love it if you like things. If you share them, it gets me seen by a few extra people. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to my channel, and that means that you will get a notification every time I go live and every time I upload a video. I did upload a video in the week about re-inking your ink pads. So it's not just one on a Friday. I do upload other ones in between times. So it really helps me out if you can do any or all of those things, liking and sharing and subscribing, and I am so grateful when you do. Okay, so let's just make a little bit of space. I'm going to move my mug of tea. I can push my iPad back a little bit more. We're still a little bit wonky. Let's see if I can straighten things up a bit. Let's see if I can actually turn it the right way this time. I always turn things the wrong way because I am 3D challenged. Yes, look at that, the correct way. Okay, and I'm going to bring in a piece of washi tape just to hold this cable up out of the way, because that worked really well last time, much better than anything else I've tried. I probably should say at this point that the last 2 Fridays, my live broadcast has been rudely interrupted when my internet just dipped out. It only dipped out very briefly, but it was enough to interrupt my Facebook Live, and unfortunately, unless it's just the teensiest flicker, that means everything goes dead, the video finishes, and I have to totally restart. So should that happen again, stick with me. I know most of you did last time, and I'm very grateful for that, and I will just set up and start it all up again as quickly as I possibly can. But hopefully that's not going to happen today. My husband was working at home last week, and I'm going to blame him for overloading the system. So this is my box of scraps of die cuts and bits and pieces. You can see I've got all sorts of things in here. These are from the Horizon dies. I've got some little stitched so sweetly labels here. I love those dies. I'm very sad that they are retiring. I've got a stenciled piece that I did for a demonstration. I've got some Waves of the Ocean die cuts in foil. I've got a load of loose labels which actually could go in here. I don't know why I've got an empty bag in there. Perhaps I tipped all the labels out and then didn't bother putting them back in the bag. So these are die cut labels. What else have I got? These were demonstration pieces. I've got some stenciled butterflies and flowers. An embossed piece there with some ink on it. I've got some more random die cuts here. These are from the Artfully Composed suite. A couple of butterflies, they're left from a card class, I think last month's card class. I've got some random die cut circles. These can go in here as well, in both vanilla and white. Piece of bark. Oh, that one goes in here, doesn't it? There we go. I'm taking advantage of tidying up at the same time. I am not a tidy crafter. Oops, oh, that wasn't clever. I've just tipped all those out. So these are cut with the Grove dies. So I've got a couple of these beautiful frames, more than a couple, 3 I think. Put that on there, then you can see it. That's so beautiful. The detailing is incredible. And then I've got lots of the deer as well. There's a few cards there almost ready to make, aren't there? All I need to do is just put them together with a background and a card base. And sometimes if I want to craft and I just have no idea at all what I want to make, I just pull out some of my scraps and start playing with them. There's another little tag there that could go in with those, couldn't it? So these are my die cut scraps. I did have a bit of a purge of these a little while ago because I couldn't get the lid on, and I decided that they had to go. So I did make some cards, but then I got rid of some. So that's those. So Sandy's saying she has a full box of scraps. She really must start using them up. So there we go. That's your task for this afternoon, Sandy. Karen saying my scraps box is neat and tidy. It is now, Karen. It wasn't, I must admit. My ribbon scraps I keep in a jar, so I'm not going to pull them all out, but I've got bits and pieces in here. Some are long, some are not. So if I get the end of a roll, for instance, I'll usually coil it up and pop it in here. Well, this is a really long piece, look at that. or if I'm designing something and I cut the ribbon and then I change my mind. So all my loose pieces of ribbon go in here. I try and coil them so they don't get all scrunched up, but sometimes I don't. So this cotton ribbon's a little bit scrunched. Look, let's just roll that up tidily. I told you I was taking advantage of having a tidy up, didn't I? There we go. I have pulled out of this all my bits of ribbon that are retiring. So these are just my current scraps of ribbon. It's a really short piece there. Sometimes I can't bear to throw it away because it's a really pretty ribbon, and actually I've got something I'll show you how to do with a really tiny scrap like that later. And then I have things like this. So this is my Beauty of the Earth patterned paper. That's the card that strengthens the pack. You can see I've got almost none left. I've got a couple of bigger pieces, but I have lots and lots and lots of these strips. The pieces that you get left if you cut panels for cards and so on. So I tend to leave them in there, and then if I want a piece, say, to go on the inside of a card just for a decorative edging, I've got all those strips here, but I do end up with an awful lot of those. So in a minute I do have an idea as to something that you might like to do with all those long strips. But first I thought I would pull a few bits out of here. So I'm definitely going to use these because they just go together, don't they? And then let's pull out one of these. I might use one of these, and I'll pull out a label as well, and then we'll just have a bit of a play around and see what we think. If I'm die cutting circles and labels, rectangles, things like that, I often die cut extra ones. If I'm doing them for classes, I always have spare pieces, and then anyway, but I also often die cut them because if you're designing something and you think, oh yes, I want a die cut circle there, sometimes I'll get to finish die cutting it and I can't remember what I was going to do. Tell me I'm not the only person like that. Please tell me that. So I quite often cut extras, and then I can grab one while I'm designing, and I hopefully won't forget what I was actually going to make. So I'm just pulling out a few bits that I think might work for this. I've got lots of these in here. So I've got polished pink ink on here, so that one might work, or that one might work. Fresh freesia. Okay, so I've pulled out a few scrap pieces there that look like they're going to coordinate. I've got a background. I don't always have backgrounds in here, but as I've got one, I might as well use it. I've got a focal point with my butterflies. I've got a few bits to add sentiments to. I don't know which of those I'm going to use. And I did cheat a little bit and think that I would probably be using pinks and purples, so I've cut myself a card blank, and I've got a layer for the insert here. And I'm just going to drink some of my tea, otherwise this is going to be cold. Okay, so now I'm simply going to play around with what I've got here. Now, these two are definitely going to go on top of each other, so let's glue them together. I'm just going to glue the body of the butterfly onto here. So these are, what are these called? Beautiful Wings dies, I think they're called. They're in the annual catalogue and they are carrying over, fortunately, and the dies have got a selection of solid butterflies and a selection of detailed butterflies. They are really lovely. So this is going to go on here. And if I get my ink blending brushes out and my stencils out, or masks as Stampin' Up calls them, I think actually, strictly speaking, they are stencils, not masks. Anyway, when I get those out, I tend to make a few stenciled pieces at a time because it doesn't seem to take very long once you've got everything out. And then I put them aside, and this one, as I say, is left over from a demonstration I was doing. So what are we going to do with this butterfly? So it could go on a circle. That one's a bit big, I think. Let's try it on a smaller circle. That one's better. Could go on there. We could pop a sentiment somewhere. And I'm just playing around here. I hadn't actually planned out exactly what I was going to do with all these things. That might work. Or we've got some of these panels. So I've got that one. So tell me what you think. Are we going circles? Are we going to go rectangles? I think I like the pink rectangle on there rather than the fresh freesia one. It's a little bit bolder. I think I'm probably liking that better than the circle, to be honest. And then I've got my butterfly, so I could stamp something underneath, or I could add a sentiment, or I could just use, I've got another scrap bag here. This is all my little narrow scraps of basic white card that are good for sentiments. So if I get any really narrow strips, or if I'm cutting narrow strips deliberately to size, I always cut a few extras. I think that's better than the die cuts, actually. I think that's where I'm going to go. Nobody's commented anything, so you're either all busy delving in your own scrap boxes or you're busy doing something else. I'd love to know if anyone's crafting this afternoon. Anybody crafting along? You won't be doing exactly the same as me because you won't have exactly the same scraps that I've got. Okay, now I pulled out my Highland Heather ink pad because this is Highland Heather ink here, and it's slightly darker than Fresh Freesia, so I thought that would show up a little bit better. And I also pulled out my Pansy Patch stamp set because, as you know, I'm always making thank you cards because I send so many, send thank you cards with all my orders, and there's a really nice thank you here in a nice handwritten font, much neater than my handwriting. So I'm going to stamp thank you on this little tiny piece of white. I hope you're not getting the top of my head. And Ruth's here. Hello Ruth, you're very welcome. I'm glad you found me. Okay, yeah, so that I think is going to work. So let me start gluing some of these bits and pieces together. So all these bits then, other than the card base and the insert, were one way or another scrap pieces, so it is quite nice to use them up. And I quite often put things together that I wouldn't necessarily have actually thought about putting together. I just, you know, I pull them out of the box and they fall on top of each other and I think, oh yes, that works. So let's put that there. Add my butterfly. Let me bring in my sentiment and decide where I'm going to put that. I'm probably going to trim that down a little bit. Yeah, I think I want my butterfly sort of off to one side rather than just within that white panel. I'm going to cut this down a little bit. See if I can do it straight. It's better, and I'll pop that up on some dimensionals, I think, and then I'll have a look and find some rhinestones because it definitely needs a little bit of bling. My bin is overflowing, if you could see it honestly, and it's full of card scraps, and I just can't keep any more card scraps at the moment. What I haven't shown you is my boxes of cards. So just in front of me and slightly to the left, I've got lots of boxes where I keep all my A4 card, and in those I keep all my card scraps as well. So if I want, I don't know, Daffodil Delight, I'll pull out my box with all the yellow cards, and all my Daffodil Delight scraps will be in there, as well as my full sheets. So I haven't shown you those, but I do have lots and lots and lots of them, and my bin is full of even more because there's only so many scraps I can keep. Okay, so now where are my rhinestones? Here we are. Oh, and look, talk about scraps. I've got some leftover coloured rhinestones here. I wonder if either of those will work. I was obviously colouring them for a project using my stamping blends, and I had some left, or I didn't like the colour. Those are two different colours. So Karen's asking, how do we all store our card, by collection or by colours? So do type in some comments and give Karen some suggestions. I have a whole box of white, basic white. I have a whole box of very vanilla because I keep a lot of that in stock. And then everything else, I keep it in colours rather than colour families. I used to keep it in the colour families, but I found that when I'm designing, that's not what I think. I don't think, oh, I'm going to make a card with the subtles. I think, well, I want a pink and I want a green. So now I've got about 3 different boxes with greens in them. I've got boxes with pinks. I've got yellows. I have the turquoise blues. I've got the blue blues. I've got purples, browns, oranges, and I've got blacks and greys. So I've got 4, 8, 12. I've got 15 A4 plastic card storage boxes. So I've got all the colours, all the Stampin' Up! Colours, and they're split into those boxes. So that's how I do it. How does anybody else store their card? All right, so that is a purple one. Then I've got 2 different pinks here. One is brighter than the other. Oh, I'm thinking I like that one. Yeah, I think that lilac-y one is nice, but it just fades into the background a little bit. So I think I'm going to use this. So that's a bonus. Look, I've used up a scrap rhinestone as well. There we go. Brilliant. Oh, I'm pleased to have used that. Let's tuck these others back in there, and I'll put them back in with all my other rhinestones. And I don't think I've got anything particularly appropriate to put on here. So I'm just going to glue in the insert. If I was using patterned paper here, I would probably have an oddment that I could put on the insert. But I think I'm just going to pop this insert in, and then I'm very happy to have another thank you card to add to my collection. So Belinda is saying she keeps her card in Kallax storage inserts from IKEA. She keeps it in alphabetical order, which works best for her. That's so interesting, Belinda, that you keep it in alphabetical order. That had never even occurred to me as a way to keep my card. We're all so different, aren't we? So there we are then. That is my first card made with scraps. I'll lift that up to show you. So it's all shades of pinks and lilacs, and everything one way or another was a scrap except for the card base and the insert. So I'm trying to get that so you can see all of it, but see it all a bit closer, and I'm not very good at it. I'm just watching it on my iPad, and I've either cut off the bottom or I've cut off the top. There we go, that's not too bad. All right, so there we are, card number 1 for today. So I'll make a little bit of space and clean my stamp. Drop my box of scraps on the floor. And then I'm going to bring in some more die cut pieces, which I did die cut specially, but I die cut them out of scraps. So I'm hoping that's allowed. And I'll show you one I made earlier, also from scraps, and then I'm going to make a variation on that. So I've made a patchwork card here. And actually, I really like this one. I'm very happy with it. So I had lots and lots and lots of oddments of this hand penned paper, which is so pretty. And because they're all from the same paper pack, of course, they all coordinate. It's all the same colours, so you can really mix and match those patterns as much as you like. And I'm sneak peeking here a fantastic new set of dies. They're called Stylish Shapes. They're in the new catalogue, so you can get them from Tuesday. And honestly, if you've got a die cutting machine, you absolutely need these. They are all stitched shapes, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, there are 6 circles, 5 squares and 4 banners. So you've got long and fat, short and fat banners, and then you've got short and slim and long and slim banners. If I can reach my ruler, I'll tell you the sizes of these. So the biggest square is 2 3/4 inches square. The biggest circle is 3 inches in diameter. And then the smallest square is just over 1 inch square. And the smallest circle is almost 7/8 of an inch. So it's a little bit bigger than 3/4 of an inch in diameter. So these are fantastic. They are stitched on both sides, so when you cut out a circle you will have the stitching marks on it, but the negative that you're left with will also have stitching around the aperture, so you can use both the positive and the negative die cuts. They are a wonderful set. If they're not on your wish list, pop them on there now. And they are called Stylish Shapes dies. So I've used those to cut squares from my scraps of patterned paper, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to see the stitch marks on here. Now, of course, you won't have the dies yet unless you're a demonstrator. You can perfectly easily just use your trimmer to cut some squares out. So these are 1.5 inch square, 1.5 inch square, which means that 3 of them across is 4.5 inches. And then my green layer here, which I did cut specially, it wasn't from a scrap, just gives a little narrow border, and then I made a square card base, and I did write down the measurements in case you wanted those. So let me put that there while I pull all the other bits out. So my die cut squares are very nearly 1.5 inches square. I used a white layer of card and built my patchwork on it, which I'll show you in a minute. I'm going to make another one of those, which is 4.5 inches square. My contrast layer is 4 5/8 of an inch square, and my card base was 10 inches by 5 inches, and I scored the long side at 5 inches. And then my insert inside is the same size as the contrast layer. So those are the measurements for that. And I really liked that in those pretty pastel colours, but then I thought I've got an awful lot of other scraps. Which set shall I use? So I pulled in my Beauty of the Earth, and I had lots of pieces in here like this. So this sort of size. If you need the measurements again, let me know and I'll pull them out. And I had lots of this sort of size. So all of these were perfect for cutting those 1.5 inch squares. And I did pre-cut those because it's not that exciting watching somebody die cut. So I've cut a selection of those here. Of course, the papers are all double-sided. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 squares. I've got another one of those labels which I pulled out of my die cut scraps box, and then I've got a thin strip here which is another scrap which I can use for the edge of my insert. So everything is cut. I used a Mossy Meadow card base and an early espresso layer, and I've picked those colours from the information on the paper pack, which has got all the colours listed, so I know if I pick any of those colours they're going to perfectly coordinate with the colours in the papers. And then one of these is the insert, and this is what I'm going to build my patchwork on. Alright, so the first thing to do, I think, actually, is to decide what order I want these in. So I'm just going to lay them down and then move them around until I'm happy with the way they look. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. So Carol is saying that she stores her card in clear plastic wallets, alphabetically. So another alphabet person, and the scraps go in the front of each wallet, so she checks that each time she goes to use the colour. Brilliant. So Carol isn't cutting into a new piece of card when she's got a scrap that would do, and she's organised enough to keep all the scraps at the front so she can see what she's got. But I am totally fascinated that 2 out of the 3 of us who've talked about how we store our card keep them alphabetically, and that wouldn't have occurred to me. So you 2 ladies are, your brains work totally different to mine, which is just so interesting. Okay, so I think I'm going to move that one there. And sometimes what I do with this is I take a photograph and look at the photograph, because very often that will throw up something to me that I hadn't spotted otherwise. So in this case, I'm having a look at this pattern on my iPad, and although I couldn't see it in front of me, when I look at the video that's showing on my iPad, these 2 aren't right together. So let me try, I think I had that there before, didn't I? Let me try moving that and see if that's any better. And then I'm just going to wait for my iPad to catch up. Yeah, that is better. I think I'm going to stick with that. I could play around with them probably all afternoon. And I don't know how many combinations there are when you've got 9 squares, but quite a lot. So now I'm just going to glue them down in order. And I think, because these are die cut and they are fractionally less than 1.5 inches, I think I will end up with a little bit of white card to trim off, but that's okay. I could put these straight onto my card base, but I find it's much easier to keep everything nice and straight if I'm putting them onto a layer of card, and then the whole thing is much sturdier as well. So I'm just laying these right next to each other and completely level with the top of the piece of card. So we've got a long weekend coming up. Who's doing something special for this weekend? Anybody? I'm having a curry out tomorrow night with my sister and my brother-in-law, which I'm really looking forward to. I haven't seen Sue for several weeks, and she has been on holiday, so I'm looking forward to hearing all about that. I'm also looking forward to not having to cook dinner. Other than that, I'm staying put with a bank holiday weekend and decent weather forecast. People are flooding into the New Forest, so I don't plan on going anywhere very much because there will just be people everywhere. But what are the rest of you doing? Maybe you're going to visit people, maybe you've got family coming. There we are. So that's my patchwork pieces, and I have got a little bit of extra here. I have no idea. Oh, there's my scissors. buried under card. So I'm just going to trim that excess off. And there's a tiny little bit on this side as well. All right. So I'm just going to glue my patchwork layer onto my coloured layer. And I've only got a narrow border around the edge of this. And then that's going to go on here. I haven't folded this very accurately. I'm just going to take a smidgen off the back half. Just to level it up. Ooh, I made a dog's breakfast of that because I tried to cut too little off. So let's just improve that. Goodness me. Okay, so I've now got shreds of cardboard stuck in my trimmer. So let's just get another scrap of card and hook all those out. Okay. Right, let's try that again. I should have started cutting in the middle rather than at the bottom. There we are, that's better. Now I had some other pieces here. So I have a label there, which I'm going to do another thank you card, I think. So I've got my same thank you, and I'm sure I had, yes I did, my early espresso ink pad here. And then, don't know what to do with those. Let's have a look. Where's my... Somewhere I've got my ribbon jar. Have I got any bits and pieces in there? Oh, I've got some of that. What's this called? Faux suede trim, which is ribbon, but it's not exactly pretty. Let's see if I can do something with that. My other go-to for this kind of card is linen thread. So let's see, what can we do with this? So I don't want something too girly, because this might well be handy to send to a gentleman. Ooh, let's just pull that back through. There we are. I'm going to put that in the middle. Now I could have wrapped the ribbon round had I thought about doing that, but it's too late. So instead I'm going to hold it on the back with a glue dot and just trim the ends. I'm just going to tuck a glue dot just to keep this in place. Mary says she's been wondering how often I stamp thank you in a year. I don't know, Mary. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. Okay, and now that way, I think. Let's see if I can get these the same length as each other. That one's a bit longer, isn't it? Let's trim that one a little bit. There we are. I'm pleased with that. There we go. Let's used a little bit of that ribbon. That is carrying over, actually. It's quite a useful ribbon, that one. All right, and let's pop that up on some dimensionals, I think. So Belinda says her go-to ribbon for anything is the white crinkle seam binding ribbon. She always makes sure she's got lots of it, and she should have brought shares in it. Yes, I love that ribbon, Belinda. In fact, if people don't know what it is, let me pull out one of my several reels of it, which I've got just next to me. In fact, that's a new one. Let's pull out one that's been started. There we go. So this is the seam binding ribbon. It's a synthetic ribbon and it's got crinkles in it. It ties beautifully. It's really soft. It feels like a silk ribbon, but it isn't. It's synthetic. If you like tying double or triple or quadruple bows, it's really soft, so you can easily do that. And best of all, because it's white, you can colour it any colour you like, either with your Stampin' Right markers, or I always use my stamping blends because then it's a permanent colour. It's a fantastic ribbon. You can always make it match your project. Like Belinda, I am never without it, and I was delighted to see that it has carried over again. I'd have been very disappointed if that had gone. Right, I'm just going to need a couple more glue dots here because the ribbon is almost as wide as my dimensionals, and the ribbon is sliding, which means the dimensionals are sliding. So if I tuck a couple more glue dots, one more or less in each place where I'm going to put a dimensional, I should find that nothing comes adrift. There we are. I love glue dots. These are small enough that you can use them for all sorts of things like this, and they will always hold your ribbon where you want it. And they're normally completely invisible. They're super strong. They're absolutely brilliant. Okay. And this has got a stitched edging on it, this little label, and that matches really nicely with my die cut pieces. Hold it up for you to see. I'm pleased with that one. And then I'm just going to add that extra strip of patterned paper to my insert. It's a little bit longer than I need it, but it was just the right width, which is around about 1/2 inch. I'm using my grid paper to keep it nice and straight. And cut the extra off. There we are. There we go. That's my second card from scraps. And again, I'll try and make a little bit of a space and clean my stamps. And then I've got one more for you, plus a little trick as well. So let me try and move all this out of the way. All right, so for this next one, I'm going to use some of this beautiful Waves of the Ocean paper. So you have to order this by Monday night if you want any of it, because it is discontinuing. So again, I've got some bigger pieces in here, some smallish pieces, and then I've had lots and lots of strips. So I have pulled those strips out. I've also pulled out some strips of card in coordinating colours, some bits and pieces. And then I've got a piece to work on, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay these down in a herringbone design, and I'll show you how to do that. Put glue on my card, and I'm going to do this using a tip that I showed you, I think it was just last week actually, where I use a sponge